map that plays out so differently depending on the way that the teams ban and depending on the way that the site rotation goes. Now, we've seen teams almost completely forego that CCTV lockers room downstairs and go with Teller's archives on the main floor, go with CEO up above, and if you lose one of those, well, then you don't need to go down to CCTV. CCTV does tend to play out very similarly. They're very small adjustments that teams make that separate them.
So this is interesting right off the bat with the bans. Habana being taken out. I say interesting. That's probably the wrong word. Predictable, but at the same time, very powerful, potent ban there.
Commonplace is what I would say, is that of the maps that we see hard breacher bans on, this ends up being one of them.
Yeah, and especially Habana, because she's going to influence those drops being opened up. They will make it so you can't open as many, or at least as easily. Technically, I believe it's still achievable with Maverick to get all the ones you need, though. It's just going to be a pain. Other than that, pretty commonplace bans. Ying being taken down, that makes sense, especially considering how tight the bottom floor can be. So a lot of these attacker bans going to assist defending the bottom floor. And that makes sense. You talked about it yourself. You mentioned how teams have decided to start leaning away from defending the bottom floor. Lockers it's not fun to defend. You kind of feel a little bit trapped at times down there. And the thing is, you need to. If you're going to be winning all of your defenses, you win Tellers, you win CEO, or you or open area rather, whatever it is you're winning, you're probably going to end up in the bottom floor. So banning out Habana, that commonplace ban, that's why you see it there, is because it'll make defending the basement so much easier. Those drop downs are going to be more difficult for the attackers to open up. But of course, because of that, they bring a Thermite and a Maverick.
It also does put the attackers in a bit of a box where they almost always need to run a Maverick. We saw it, we saw it in DreamHack Winter from a number of teams that played Bank, that Maverick's utility is not necessarily applied in the most efficient of ways to open up hatches and walls. He pokes holes, he causes issues for defenders to sit, he opens up lines of sight, but he's not really used or utilized in a way where he's going to open up a wall for you to walk through. He's not going to necessarily open up a hatch, but because hatches tend to be safer, and Maverick does end up being quite vulnerable when he's seated there with his blowtorch out, it's best to use him on hatches. It does take quite a while.
Yeah.
But overall, he's a very odd soft breacher, hard breacher line of sight style of operator. A lot of teams will run both a Thermite and a Maverick with a Hibana gone just because you need to be able to open up one of those hatches. And oh man, Pino upstairs inside of open area, completely caught off guard. He's playing by that office down inside of open area and say goodbye. And Tax vaults in, kills him, and vaults right back out, doing his best Gohan impression from our first match of the day.
Yeah, caught off guard is right there from Pino, but that's not a situation where the attacker outplayed him, did something amazing. That's a situation where Pino is just in a bad spot, leaving himself exposed, giving away a free kill. And not a great operator to give away for free at the beginning of the round. That's your Maverick, or sorry, did I just confuse Maestro for Maverick? That's your Maestro. And what that means is all of his Evil Eyes are now locked in place and unable to zap anyone. So if they're looking in the wrong direction, and I'm sure they might be because this is pretty early into the round, they won't be very useful to the remaining defenders. Now, that control being established upstairs is going to be pretty huge, and INTZ is making full use of it so far. Defenders still have control of server, which is kind of surprising considering we've seen half the round already transpire, and it seems to be the location that INTZ wants to push into. And they're going to have to spend a big chunk of this remaining minute getting just server control, considering it's being contested so heavily.
Lack of a Mira also means that lack of a pulse for NIP's side of things, and it means that NIP is going to roam quite aggressively.
Yeah.
Alibi often gets brought out in this situation by NIP, as they used to have either Psycho or PZD playing on that Alibi here for NIP, but they're going to forego it. They're going to run with the Ella instead, who you can see playing on that server stairs, and oh man, that would have been embarrassing if Psycho had missed that, but Yuke, as the Ash flashing onto the server stairs, he'll be caught and quickly sent away.
I'm not going to lie, I did not think that was an Ash, but oh no, Psycho able to get Boar, as Boar does not fully clear upstairs. Peeks into it, just doesn't look everywhere. A huge mistake there from Thermite. Now Attack trying to refrag and is successful, but look at the time. So much damage done by Psycho, and now his remaining teammates all just need to wait out this last 20 seconds. Attack also going to be down. Drunks will eliminate Kamikaze, and the sledge is actually going to be picked up. That's good teamwork there, but again, tick-tock goes the clock. Wag playing from the A-bomb in a great position as the smoke, going to be able to use his weapons to the fullest in this close proximity. But the grenade could potentially... Oh no! Beautiful play from Wag. And Julio also able to take down Duds. Now, that was a really easy holdout there at the end for Ninjas in Pyjamas, but it mostly comes down to INTZ not managing their clock very well, and that flank from Psycho.
And an excellent play from WOG, too. Now, because they didn't have the ability to pressure WOG behind that bomb chassis effectively, you had INTZ pushing in one by one. You gave the smoke the opportunity to reload that tiny magazine of the SMG-11 and then cut you down. And a great push up from WOG to dodge the frag grenade that sailed over his head that was thrown out by the sledge. And the two-piece was pretty impactful for NIP. They did a great job holding that bottom site without a Mira, without a pulse, being mobile, and to recover as gracefully as NIP did. After losing Pino, the first 30 seconds inside of open area, speaks to two things. Number one, it speaks to NIP's ability to roam on this site, or to roam on that site. You saw the castle that was given 2 free kills essentially from INTZ, apparently just not talking to each other. As the ash goes down and the Thermite literally backs up the stairs right into the castle. That was peculiar, to say the least. Obviously, at that point, I think they just had some miscommunication at play there. But yeah, ultimately, 2 big mistakes from INTZ. And then because they lost the Thermite upstairs to the castle, you would have the remaining members of the team funnel in through one door, which is easily controlled by the toxic canisters of smoke. And then, of course, an SMG-11 that, unless you exploit that small magazine, it's going to do a pretty good job of winning that fight. So WOG holding it together. And then he'll push Ninjas in Pyjamas on round number 2 all the way up to CEO. Now, this is the site that I said, Michael, we've seen actually quite a high pick rate in as of late. It's been going up and up and up. A lot of teams actually replacing that bottom floor or the main floor of Teller's Archives as a go-to site.
I still think Teller's is the best site on Bank. You know, it's definitely one of the more well-rounded ones, and it gives you a good amount of flexibility in terms of where you can roam. There aren't a lot of ways you can influence the top floor roaming in the basement, but you can definitely do that if you're defending Tellers. Psycho with the run out on the north windows, definitely a more popular strategy these days, but it almost always results in a refrag for the attackers if any kills are able to be even gotten by the defenders on the initial run out. So Psycho, good job to him, getting 1, but it's a 1-for-1, and that's it. And honestly, the exchange in the favor of the attackers, considering you got rid of Legion and pretty early into the round. Means there's not going to be many traps. Kamikaze playing an awkward angle, and Yuke is going to make full use of that exposure. Pretty easy kill there onto the mute, and Ninjas in Pyjamas falling apart one at a time here. You know, really great Evil Eye, though, looking into the main hallway. Gonna give him some good control. Wag going an aggressive play onto the Thermite hole and will eliminate Yuke. Ninjas in Pyjamas will not relent on the aggression. They did it in the previous round. They're doing it yet again here, and it's working out for them.
It's gonna prompt a rotate now from INTZ, who have lost 2 pretty important soft destructive tools. Lucky for them, they still have a Glaz whose caliber destruction with that DMR is pretty strong. And of course, a Glaz is always going to be quite a formidable operator to square off against as he just wanders right in. WOG gets caught with his back to the Glaz. An easy kill for Drunks as he'll peel off and throw onto a drone to try and assist Boar and Duds as NIP has lost the plot here on this round. That aggression that you spoke of that was working for them unfortunately turned the tide the other way. Julio inside of Janitor Closet. He's got 2 rotates to get back into the site. It'll be very important for his team and can possibly greet somebody from INTZ over on the Skylight Stairwell side of things. That's exactly where 2 members are. Pino pops out, he takes down Duds, and I don't know if Ninjas in Pyjamas knows this, but their 2 remaining enemies are both coming from the same direction. And with a Maestro there, you can quarterback that play quite well.
Potentially an Evil Eye able to see through this last remaining smoke. Could deny the defuse plant, but that's only potential. Yes, indeed, there is, and here we go. Pino is going to be the most important operator here, but he goes for the spray instead of the zap, and he's running out of time. The diffuser could be planted regardless of the zap start, and yes, indeed, it will, but the flank from Julio, able to get 1, but not 2. Drunk's left on 1 HP, and Pino only needs to land a single shot, but he's unaware of where the glass is exactly. Finally, position given away, but the spray initially will miss. Pino spraying continually. I don't know if he knows how little HP the glass has, but yes, the shotgun pistol will win the fight, regardless of Drunks landing a shot and putting Pino on very low HP. Ninjas of Pyjamas will take the round.
Unlucky from Julio, unable to get what he needed onto the glass, walking away with just a tiny bit of HP left. And kind of, that situation, I feel like, could have maybe been prevented by a bit of a confusing choice in priorities there from the Maestro. He went for the sprays onto the mark. There's the desk in the way. He misses most of those shots onto the thermite, leaving Julio to have to rotate. Julio plays it well, keeps it cool, walks up making very minimal noise, and gets to a point where he greets both members of INTZ as they push out of the CEO office, but then MPX does so little damage that it's very difficult, unless you're landing the headshots that you need to clean up more than one person at a time, especially when you're going off against a Glaz who can tear through you in 2 shots. So that decision-making could have possibly changed things for Nip. Ultimately, when you've got the Alda and you've got a mark, I understand why you go towards that LMG. That thing just tears through everything in its path. But you could have possibly gone for the zap there, in hopes of helping eliminate as much of the HP from the thermite as you could, and maybe cause some panic as well in INTZ's side of things.
No, I'm on the same page with you there, Parker. The Evil Eye was definitely the right play, but it worked out in the end for Ninjas of Pyjamas, and that's all that really matters. Now, we're going to be going to what I believe is a Teller's defense, though I can't quite tell. Didn't really notice at the beginning. Yes, indeed, it is a Teller's defense. So the third site here on the streak for Ninjas in Pyjamas is they have been successful on the 2 more standard bomb sites, CEO and basement, though Teller's has always been that number 2 for as long as Bank has existed. So no open just yet for the Ninjas. Though that's not terribly surprising. I think open area is probably the least picked bomb site on Bank. Again, I don't have the numbers, but
yes,
I would imagine.
I mean, you don't need the numbers to know that. Yeah, it is. You're absolutely correct. A lot of that is because the only real ways that we've seen teams be able to pull off successful open area holds have usually involved a Mira and a Castle Strat. It's tough when Mira is banned to make that happen. And of course, with INTZ banning Mira, I would be surprised to see super successful and consistent open area defense.
It's just one of those sites that there's always going to be a hole somewhere in your defense, and it's really hard to patch everything up. But again, that's why we don't see it nearly as much as these others. Teller's is a solid one. Important that you roam upstairs for at least some amount of time. And ooh, Intact able to get some good information here, but that's confusing. He marks the Maestro, or somebody on his team at least marks the Maestro on his camera, which means Maestro, of course, aware that his position has been given away, could potentially result in a kill, but you can see that Maestro is very confident. He's staying on his cams. That means he has full information on his proximity. He's not worried about giving away a kill for free. Intact working his way into the main lobby from ATMs. Very dangerous play to be doing by himself with no one droning him in, but he's committed now fully.
Kamikaze will need to have some kind of crossfire established, which I think that's exactly what Pino's going to try to do here. Easy to pop up behind the deployable shield for the Jaeger of Ninjas in Pyjamas, but he's in a lot of trouble. Pino will pick up his second onto Drunks, as this is a great bait right now from Ninjas in Pyjamas. Keeping that LMG of Pino all the way down over by Banana to just peek out and take down every single member of INTZ, just getting absolutely slaughtered.
Yeah.
By that LMG's fire rate. It's going to push INTZ back, and they're going to continue to lose bodies now as down goes Yuke. This is an excellent hold from Nip for the time being.
I'm sure you've noticed this. It's INTZ having a lot of information. Remember we talked about in the last match where it seemed like there wasn't enough information being gathered by Black Dragons, especially on their attacks. Well, here it's INTZ having tons of information and no action to back up said information. They really seem to struggle when they know where their opponent is, and that's somewhat confusing. Now, in a 2 versus 5, you're not putting a whole lot on the 2. There's still potential for it. They've got a good chunk of control. But Psycho winning a fight against Boar, leaving just Duds, his position given away. He's able to get one and down another, but it's not going to matter. Julio will finish off the round, and Ninja Pyjamas, that's 3 in a row for them.
It was really good timing, too. You had 3 bodies thrown at the Zofia all at once because you had the advantage on your side. You knew you could do that, and one of them will almost assuredly land the refrag just because, well, Zofia doesn't have an endless amount of bullets in that magazine. So Bank is a very tough map to clear correctly. It's a big part of why you see Jackal getting run so often, because he works quite well in the way that teams will often roam, and there are very few teams that roam as effectively on this map as Ninjas in Pyjamas does. INTZ have really struggled to be able to get in and really establish anything. Like you said, they've had an abundance of information. They have been using their drones quite well. They've caught a number of members of NIP completely off guard. Look at Pino in that first round. They did the same with Pino and Banana on that previous round, but nobody established any control.
Yeah, they droned Pino before anyone else, and then Pino got 2 kills.
And a big part of that was because there was no investment from INTZ into the lobby side of Bank. There was a very uniform push from Skylight Stairwell, and then Pino was there to greet them. And it was one person, and I talked about it in the middle of the round. It was one person in main lobby. It was intact on Buck, and he was alone. So an investment, but more like, I wouldn't call one person solo entry with no information and investment.
More like throwing away your value.
Yes.
Or your whatever.
Especially when Buck needs to be in CEO. Especially when you need Buck in CEO to be able to tear away at that floor, to try and pull off a play onto Tellers and Archives.
I think what they were trying to do with the Buck is push him underneath.
Possibly.
I'm not entirely sure what the plan was, to be honest with you. Overall, it was a confusing play, and it was something that Pino was able to win, regardless of Pino's position being given away.
Now, very similar to what we saw in the Black Dragons Team Liquid matchup was Team Liquid came firing out of the gates. They take 3 rounds. They look really good, and it doesn't look like Black Dragons is really doing much of anything. Is INTZ going to be able to find themselves in a position where, like Black Dragons, are able to close that gap? Well, it's a question that's going to need to be answered. And up against this composition from Ninjas in Pyjamas, they're going to find a couple things that will frustrate INTZ. The first one will obviously be this clash of Psycho, who's playing at the top of server stairs with a deployable shield in front of her. So even if she gets hit with a possible Zofia concussion mine, which isn't possible because INTZ doesn't have Zofia in their arsenal, or any way to knock that shield away, Clash will still likely be covered from that deployable shield from the mid-drift down. Now, there's a Capitao on the board from Intact, so there is a deliberate hard counter from INTZ that can try to push back the Capitao. Julio underneath the hatch. We'll see the Maverick trying to open things up, and he's ready with a C4, and boom goes the dynamite, but no. Duds gets away in time. Just a little bit too slow from Julio there, unable to capitalize on the Maverick.
Yeah, he needed to predict the breaking of the hatch. When you've got like a Habana charge or a Thermite, they have a countdown and you're really used to it. But Maverick, it's a little bit harder to read how much of the drop down he's opened up, and thus harder to time your C4. That's why you had that delayed reaction, because he wasn't predicting, he was reacting. Now, INTZ going for what looks like a back push through the drop downs as the smokes and flashes start coming out, and they've already managed to get a foothold here, but it's a dangerous one. These bars can really work against you. And speaking of working against you, WAG able to get the first kill on this engagement. Clash is rotated back, and she is going to be a huge thorn in the side of INTZ. And oh no, a vault over an opponent, but Dud's actually able to take down WAG, who is underneath the window. Perfect timing to get that kill. Intact going for the defuse plant. He's got no support from his teammates, but there's no one from NIP actually trying to stop him. Pino able to down the, or actually not Pino able to down the Clash. I believe that might have been the Firebolt downing the Clash. Pino able to get a kill though for himself. And Clash inside of B is going to be picked up and back in play. That's going to be really big when they go for disabling that diffuser. Drunk's in a really clutch position, but he's got to deal with the shield. And that's not an easy feat when you can't shoot through it. Psycho able to take down Boar as he whips out the SMG. And a second for Psycho. That's very impressive using that 2-burst SMG. Ninjas in Pyjamas have successfully retaken onto the site, and what a clear it was. Clash at the spearhead.
I like the rotate there that you saw from INTZ to go for the vault drop, realizing that they didn't have the tools necessary and didn't feel comfortable attacking CCTV. Like we've said, CCTV, when you're trying to attack it, tends to play out very similarly. There's a rhythm to it. Yeah. Especially if there's a mirror in play and especially if there's a pulse in play. So what do? You throw out the rulebook and you try something new. And that's what INTZ did. They decided to go for a vault drop, which we've seen many times before. And while NiP did go for the rotate, they essentially got boxed out. You had to worry about a glass, to worry about smokes on the board, and you really only have a Clash from Ninjas in Pyjamas who's there to possibly stop you. And I think that the way it was handled from INTZ went well, but I don't think they were expecting NiP to rotate the way they did and catch them so far off guard. And I mean, Clash used to be able to switch really fast to that 2-burst SMG sidearm. What ends up happening is, well, the Clash dives behind cover, pulls out the SMG, pops back in, and catches 2 members of INTZ who were distracted by Pino the Maestro and a push from NiP that was coming through lockers, allowing the Clash to get the 2 kills to break the back of INTZ's post plant and open things up for NiP, at which point they just kept rolling, knowing they had those numbers advantage and that there was really no escape for INTZ. And that's one of the problems with attacking onto the locker side of things with a vault drop is you can't get out of there. Where can you go? You can sit in the elevator hatch or you can sit in vault. But a lot of times the defenders will likely cut off your push to garage. You won't really have the main stairs to be able to get out. And depending on the way the site is set up, you might have a lot of soft walls that lead in towards the vault hatch. And of course you've got the big window over by lockers as well. So for INTZ, we had a lot working against them in this scenario. And as good, I think, as their execute was, Ninjas in Pyjamas, their correction in the post plant worked a lot better.
So this is interesting. INTZ has rotated away from the glass, a tool that they had been bringing consistently on, I believe it was Drunks. They've just decided to forego in this round and instead bring a Montaigne. Now, typically you would see the Montaigne in tandem with the glass, but not so here. An interesting decision made by INTZ. It has been working out somewhat for INTZ, but not as well as I think they were hoping, and that's probably why they've decided to go for this rotation. Attacking on to CEO. Thermite should be at the top of Skylight right now, but he's instead on the roof looking for an angle into A. I'm not really sure what he's trying to accomplish here, probably just watching for a run out. But there's no one to bait for him, so he's kind of just wasting time. We've seen this be a problem for INTZ in the past, and hopefully they're able to correct it soon. Looks like he's trying to get the batteries, that would be my hunch, but it's going to be a difficult angle to accomplish. Psycho will take down Duds as well, so it's going to get even worse for INTZ. And from below, Intact able to get those batteries. So there you go. Okay, mission accomplished. Thank you, Sledge. Now, the Evil Eye there.
I don't think they realize it doesn't do damage to the shield. They're just kind of...
You think they don't know that? I think they know that. I think they're just trying to spook him.
They're just spooking Drunks?
Yeah, I mean, hey, you know, he can't shoot back. The Evil Eye's not going to get destroyed.
Michael, I was being facetious. I wasn't being serious.
Oh, okay.
I think as professionals, they probably know.
Yeah, they probably know. So Thermite charges will go off on both of the panels. And that's going to be really good control there for INTZ. And because they still have that Montaigne in play, of course, he's going to be an important tool when they go for that actual site push.
I really like this change from INTZ, and I think it's something that we can talk about when the round is concluded, but I don't think the Glaz was the play for the way that INTZ was using him, and I think establishing Drunks on an operator, that is much more difficult to deal with, and look at what NiP has in their arsenal. At best, they have one Nitro Cell on Julio. That's about it. You don't really have any way to stop this Montaigne. It's a great read from INTZ. He's just going to waltz right into sight. 2 trades from Uke, and Psycho coming out as Pino goes down, but Julio is there to give his team the advantage, and now Drunks is just waiting, but the diffuser is very far down. Intact trying to take out Julio. He'll succeed. It's just Drunks and Intact now as the pistol comes out. He'll down the Jaeger, and, well, Drunks is there to finish him off. Are they going to be able to silence the Montaigne? Oh, Drunks with 2, almost catching a third as Psycho nosed him. Pistols 1 HP. He's in a tough spot. The Mountain will just wander right in, and the Doc will have to fight against a shield. And the plant going down from Intact. Everybody's below!
No!
Psycho gets the kill, and Drunks!
What are you doing?
Inadequate coverage and a great shot to stop the plant, and NiP will continue to roll as they are up 5-0.
absolutely heartbreaking there from Drunks. You saw, instead of trying to hunt down his opponent, he decided it would be most prudent to assist his teammate planting the diffuser by covering him being Montaigne. Right, and he was correct in that assumption, so he started backing up, but no, he went the wrong way. A truly heartbreaking failure on Drunk's part there, costing his team the round. There's no way to put it other than that. And now Ninjas and Pyjamas find themselves up 5-0 in what could have been a 4-1 situation. They have to be so grateful right now to Drunks.
Oh. Tough. They'll put Drunks back on the Glass, though. But I did want to focus on this just a little bit. So the Glass, obviously, on Bank in particular, you've got a lot of lines of sight. You've got a lot of soft walls. CCTV, he's great here. But CCTV downstairs, Glass is very site specific. So CCTV doesn't tend to be a site that you see him played all that often on. He can do great coverage inside a server. You can hold down the doorway, you can throw your smokes, you can cut off the rotate, especially if there's a mirror playing behind there inside a CCTV. It'd be really strong. But when you're looking at Teller's Archives, when you're looking at CEO, Glass, his usage soars. Yeah. And there's a lot of teams that use him very effectively.
Oh no.
I mean, the Glass at this point is also used often to stop spawn peeks. A lot of them that come from the front doors of Bank, not expecting Psycho to go for a spawn peek at the back door and take out the sledge of Intact, and your primary soft destructor is going to be removed from play.
A quick aside here, that's Psycho's 11th kill.
He's having a good day.
Yeah.
He's having a pretty good day. Now, glad that we can see what Drunks is doing on these windows. On the side of Bank, over by the parking garage. This is what I was talking about. Glass is very site-specific and... Oh! Sit down, Psycho. Take a seat. That's a beautiful shot from Drunks on the windows. He gets his kill and he maneuvers on over. And that is part of the reason why you bring a Glass when you know that these teams have to go towards one of the sites that are not fortified in the basement. Because there's usually going to be roamers who are going to be in positions where you can spot them through a window in Bank. And that's exactly why you bring the Glass. But Drunks, I don't think, was getting the most value out of it. That's why he went with the Montaigne. It was a good choice, but overall, it was a bit more of a mistake from Psycho than it was a great play from the Glass and Drunks. If you know there's a Glass on the board, he's probably going to be somewhere around parking garage or on Repel on Windows by front lobby, at which point you're very vulnerable.
Yes, indeed. Now, even exchange so far in this round. Drunk's able to refrag it. That's really important. Pino aggressive onto the skylight stairs, and he will just die to duds. I think that was the wrong play there for Pino, and he's been making a lot of those mistakes in this match today. Duds will get his second as well as Wag tries to, compound that wrong play by giving his own, rushing into the double door by Skylight. Not a good call there for the Maestro and Smoke. I don't really know how else to put that. Julio and Kamikaze, now the last two defenders, and of course it is going to be a defense of Tellers. So Kamikaze playing the long game, hoping to potentially flank his opponents by hiding behind the CEO desk. Could work out for him, but as Valkyrie's position is given away, Boar, some great drone work there. He's waiting for a marked and a shot through the wall, but Valkyrie luckily moves. Good call there for Julio. He probably doesn't know it, but he just narrowly avoided death, so good job. Coming back to the unreinforced wall, and again, very exposed to potential mark through the wall, and a shot, and just barely stops the thermite charge.
It's one of the follies of trying to do that on a soft wall, is that for anybody there, you can shoot the exothermic charge through that soft wall quite easily. It's very loud, and you can see the outline too. So here we have it. Nip holding on for dear hope. As the wall goes next to Julio, but he looks the wrong way. Drunks is there, and it's all going to rest on the shoulders of Kamikaze to try to keep this. A flawless first half. The plant going down, going to get stopped. Kamikaze takes out Drunks, but will not get the planter in Boar. There's two semi-hard breachers in both the Thermite and the Maverick there. We've almost certainly established a cross. Maverick will give his position away as Duds is there, and a quick peek from Kamikaze, losing half of his HP, and setting us up in a 1v1. A gigantic hole in the wall will be a major problem for Kamikaze, as he'll have no cover to go for the diffuser. It's going to be a tense moment. He's not going to be able to long-arm this, and Boar will be in a very advantageous position on the stairs, just waiting for the Jaeger to peek. He's going to have to go for the kill, and you hear it first, and no! Kamikaze is not going to land the shots needed. Boar pops up, and down goes Kamikaze INTZ will finally find themselves on the board. It comes. Their very last attack to try and cauterize this open wound that has been inflicted by Nip. We'll switch sides and see what INTZ can do on defense. But it's a commanding lead right now for the Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Nice try there to Kamikaze. But, yeah, that was pretty much an unwinnable situation there at the end. Would have had to see a pretty substantial mistake made by Boar in order for INTZ to lose that round. I don't know, it's going to be Tellers, it looks like, as the first pardon me, Lockers as the first defense for INTZ. And not exactly surprising, especially considering the ban that we have on the Habana. Montaigne being 6 picked into here for Ninjas in Pyjamas, so there's going to be making sure they bring a set of smokes there. Not going to be the Dokkaebis, but instead the shield operators. And Montaigne is very, very useful downstairs in attempting to plant that diffuser if you're coming from the server side especially. Overall, good kit here for Nip. They've got both the hard destructors that they can bring. They've got all the soft destruction they could need. Especially going to be useful to have those nades and the ash charges if they have to deal with somebody holding on to the server stairs, as is a common strategy. We saw it from Ninjas in Pyjamas when they were defending the bottom floor. And they've got the Montaigne for the actual site push. So everything looking good. Interesting pick here for INTZ. They've managed to, they've decided to bring a Kapkan. As you can see, Boar, I mean, he's not a bad operator, if we're being honest. After he got changed to being a 2-speed, immediately a better operator. You still don't see him very often because it relies on negligence from your opponent to be useful. So if your enemy doesn't forget to check doorways, then essentially he's just a 2-speed with a pretty good gun and impacts. And that's not exactly a bad thing. It just means you could potentially be losing on some utility, and that's why you don't see him played very often. But clearly, the defenders right now, INTZ, are relying on indirect damage. Because, let's be honest, they're not winning many fights.
I think a big part of this, too, is that Nip has been so swift in their entry, and I don't think this, or it is so swift typically on their entry, and I don't think this round is going to be any different. Of course, this is Nip's first time, and historically, they have done quite well at being able to take map control very quickly, and Psycho being the main point of focus at the moment for INTZ, will just kind of wander right in. Kapkan realizing there's likely going to be a bait as a shot through the wall will miss Boar. So the Kapkan will not take any damage. Boar picking up his very first kill in the previous round as he had been held off of that scoreboard, doing the diligence of a support operator, not exactly getting good numbers onto that scoreboard, and most of it being off. Psycho under fire from the Legion as Wog gets baited into Boar, and it's a crossfire established from INTZ, but it's the Kapkan, and oh man, Psycho just losing out as can't really see around all those racks.
Sleep at the wheel is how I would describe that. A confusing play there for Psycho. Good job to Boar, though, managing to secure the flank and get the knife. Pino starting to push his way into Tellers, and he's worried about that crossfire, and rightfully so. There's quite a lot of barrels pointed his way, but he will finally dispatch Boar, who was doing a lot of work in Tellers and Archives. So somehow, confusingly, this is a pretty even round. The Kapkan trap will down Kamikaze. So there you go. That's that negligence working in favor of INTZ. All done there to Boar setting up the Kapkan traps. Intact still playing by the server. He's got the perfect kit to hold on to those server stairs. SMG-11 and the shotgun. Typically seen on smoke, but no reason not to bring it on mute now that he can do that.
It's a good time to use that utility, but I think this might be a bit too slow for Nip here. They're going to really have to hasten this push. They only have 20 seconds left. Match point is theirs if they can walk away with a victory here, but Drunks will take out Kamikaze, and Nip will even the odds. Pino there taking out Drunks. They've got time working against them quite heavily, and this is a big problem for Nip, trying to figure out where these remaining members are. Pino gets one, so there's only Intact left, but he needs to stop the plant, but Pino gets it at the last second! Nip somehow managed to walk away with the round when it looked completely out of reach. Oh my goodness, what a magnificent round from Pino.
Yeah, certainly the hero of the round there. I mean, it all started with clearing out Boar, finally, inside of Archives. It took a long time for it to happen, and you know, he was the hero then. He carried that torch till the end of the round. Very well played there to Pino. Now, it is match point. We've gone to that 6 rounds for Ninjas of Pyjamas. And it did look like that was going to be another one where INTZ was starting their fight back, but they could not make it work in the end. So it's going to be even more difficult for them moving forward. They're going to go back downstairs instead of trying to force a different bomb site.
This is really something to that round. That individual effort from Pino and the way that things worked out. He gets a 4K on that round. Absolutely impressive. So close to getting the ace.
Yeah.
But couldn't do it.
Very well done. Indeed. Now, again, INTZ forcing out the basement one more time. Very dangerous to do, but I gotta be honest, I don't blame them considering how close that last round was. Everything was going INTZ's way, and then Pino showed up and got a 4K. So, truly, I think if you're comfortable in the basement, assuming that doesn't happen again, it could totally work out for you. Now, they've decided to bring different kit. Instead of bringing the cap can, they have rotated away from that. They got the pulse now so that they can play a little bit more of the server game. They can deny the plant if it comes from the typical location, which is server, using that C4 and heartbeat detector. But that didn't seem to be the strategy from Ninjas of Pyjamas the last time they attacked this site. I think the reason it wasn't is because of how much manpower they lost upstairs. They might have decided to go to server if they had a full lineup.
I want to point out the smoke of Intact on the server stairs here because that's a risky place to put that much utility. We have seen many rounds where they have put a smoke on server stairs on bank, various teams. You get Zofia'd, you get firebolted, you get flashed, and next thing you know, what ends up happening? You lose your smoke really early on. That utility you say goodbye to for the entire round, and the defense is left with a pretty important staple gone. That's a big hole that is very tough to fill.
You know, last round what we saw from INTZ is that they put the mute with the same exact weapon lineup on the server stairs.
That's smart.
And that's smart because...
Smarter.
Well, yeah, smarter. Because the mute jammers are on the floor, man. You're not going to be losing that utility. It's not a huge deal. You could potentially lose the C4, but honestly, it's better. Oh, wow, what a shot from Drunks. He has been landing some nutty shots in this match. And Psycho's trying to refrag, but he just gives himself away. Drunks will be down, but he's done his damage, and Yuke also will take down Wag. So Ninjas of Pyjamas falling apart at the seams here. Intact, able to get Kamikaze. Julio will get duds, but it's just Julio in the 1 versus 4. Make that 1 versus 3 as he eliminates Boar. Eats a lot of damage, though, and he's going to have to find 3 headshots. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. It's 3 headshots or bust here for Julio. It's going to be definitely a tall task. Flashbangs are going to help him out quite a lot, but he's aware of his flank as it's being called out from the drones. Goes for the push, and it is poorly timed. Intact, able to get the final kill.
Whether he gets the kill or not, he's immediately traded off because the Legion was just by the vault door, and the Thermite had nowhere to go unless he was able to do a crazy 180 flick onto the head of the Legion. That was over for Ninjas in Pyjamas. So I want to talk about the play of the Montane inside a garage with very minimal cover, and then Drunks with 2 incredible kills to be able to stop the garage push and force Nip to basically have to abandon their plan.
So if we're being honest, the Montane wasn't playing poorly until his teammate died. And his teammate dying was unexpected, I gotta be honest. The Montane was obviously calling out everything Drunks was doing. And for most of that round, Drunks was staring at the Montane shield. But Drunks just took 2 seconds to pivot, look at garage door, one-tap his opponent, and then return to the Montane. And that threw Montane through a loop. He was unsure what to do in that situation. I don't really blame him. It's a difficult situation when your assistant gets taken downs with relative ease. And you could see, I remember I was talking about how Psycho, that was his 11th kill. Well, he hasn't done very much since. Pino has 10 now, and Drunks, the man we're just talking about there, the Maestro, has 10 himself. And that's why INTZ has stayed in this match.
We're going to sit on match point all the way till the end of this map, and it's going to be a...
5 seconds left.
Are we?
Well, I mean, it's no matter what happens, we're going to be on match point.
True.
Because even if INTZ ties it, the final round will be match point because it will be 6-5, Michael. That's how numbers work.
Yes.
Don't you ever doubt me again.
Okay.
And this is going to be important for INTZ to be able to dig deep here because you've got, right now, Ninjas in Pyjamas have INTZ by the throat.
Yes. I mean, they just need to win one round. I mean,
they just need to win one round. Not exactly a given. We have seen games tighten up. We have seen pretty impressive comebacks from 4-1s, 5-1s, and I guess now 6-1s we will need to see because the format has changed and we continue to see that number, that round count grow.
I'm sure we've seen a couple of them already.
So when you look at the way that NiP is going to be attacking here, the Montane and the Dokkaebi, you're going to have a lot of paralysis on the side of NiP's attack. As for INTZ, got the smoke and Elysian, being able to handle basically anything that NiP is going to be able to throw at them in terms of utility from the defender side of things. It'll be a teller's defense for INTZ. Instead of going to CEO upstairs, which is what NiP had been favoring on their second run through, it sounds like a pre-C4 might actually be placed here by Julio, or just above Julio's head. He can actually see the C4, but it's going to be tough for him to get it. This is perilous for Pino because if that C4 goes off below the buck sky high.
Yeah, so potentially a double effect there from the C4 if used properly. Julio's, he's trying to work his way in there, and you're absolutely right, no longer beeping away. And that's going to allow Julio the freedom to push in to tellers without being contested right now. It's not a whole lot the defense can do about that. They do have the Legion traps and the gas canisters, but not really being put to full use just yet. They need to start whittling away at Julio's HP if they want to have any hope at winning this round and keeping in this match. But Pino and Wag going to get 2 kills, and it's looking really desperate for INTZ right now. Potentially the last minute of this match.
Intact is really low on HP, but you've got Boar there. He's going to light up the shield, but there are no armor-piercing bullets. Intact, just a shred of HP, will take one down, and no, Intact, a team kill on top of Duds, and Intact picking up one before. Intact will now be down by Pino from above, and Duds grabs his kill in a 1v2, looking to try and lock this away and give NiP yet another victory on the season. Yeah, Kamikaze on the main stairs, and Duds will be frozen in place to turn off the ringing cell phone from the Dokkaebi. Wandering towards open area and look towards the double doors into the hallway. Could possibly catch the Zofia here. A mark from the camera will at least let Duds know that there is one warm body nearby and holding a very tight pixel angle. The Zofia wanders into sight. He sees the bucket, he'll take one down. Duds, the double kill out of nowhere on Pino, and Kamikaze will shut the door on Ninjas in Pyjamas, taking the match. It will require at least one more round for both of these teams to continue to play on. What a recovery from INTZ there.
The stars aligned for Duds in that moment. Everything was in his corner. The information, the positioning, clearly Ninjas in Pyjamas were unaware of where that Jaeger was. I'm assuming they thought he was in archives. I cannot blame them for that assumption, though I can blame them for not taking the time that they had to actually figure out where their opponent was. There had to have been some kind of tool they could have used to do just that. If there wasn't, then that's poor management of utility. And by, of course, utility, I mean drones. Either way, well done there to Duds. Nice try to Ninjas in Pyjamas. They did meet up, so you got to give them credit for taking their last 2 players and pushing them together. Just, fortunately for them, they exposed themselves too much there in that last situation. Now, CEO for INTZ. We're going to be going back upstairs, and this is actually the first time that they will be defending it. So this is a new thing, potentially good for INTZ. No, not potentially. I would say outright good for INTZ because even if they lose here, they gain somewhat the element of surprise. They can do something a little bit different, maybe catch their opponent off guard. And honestly, the way that this has been playing out, that's exactly what they need. I mean, it's how they won the last round. So
5 seconds left before insertion.
INTZ have a little bit going for them here. in terms of lack of knowledge.
At what point do you reach a situation where Ninjas in Pyjamas have lost their momentum and essentially have not maybe thrown the game away, but found themselves in a position where they could have ended this sooner, and INTZ has everything working in their favor to close this gap and essentially make it a nigh impossible for Ninja to be able to actually get the round that they need?
I mean, I think you said it correctly when you were talking about it earlier, is Ninjas in Pyjamas will, for the remainder of this match, have the advantage. No matter what, if they win one round, it is over. And, okay, it might take them quite a lot of rounds to get that one, but they are going to still continue, you know, they're still going to have that confidence. It's not just going to evaporate because they're losing a couple of rounds. I mean, that last one, they got, I mean, INTZ got really lucky. So, I don't know. I think there's definitely something to be said about, you know, losing momentum, but not when you're on match point, not when you get on match point so early on.
Very fair point there, as Kamikaze can't see the outlines the way that we can, knowing that there's a soft wall that separates what looks to be the outline of the dock from Drunks.
A bomb has been located.
Kamikaze in the pretty typical Glaz spot, and Drunks, who's been landing some pretty good shots as this match has gone on, will test out the limits of that ACOG and take out WOG and say goodbye to the Ash. Interesting that they've moved WOG onto the ACOG, or onto the Ash, because WOG will typically play your support role and isn't necessarily the person that you're going to assume will get most of the frags. It's taken about 90 seconds now for NIP to be able to get in towards the main lobby, and a big part of that kill onto the Ash falls onto the shoulders of Psycho, not being able to give the coverage as the Montaigne of his teammate to keep WOG alive.
You can see that Pino is aware of Yuke in the elevator, but he's actually going to miss the grenade, it looks like. C4 from Yuke will also miss, and another grenade misses. So that's some really bad use of utility from Pino, and Julia will also go down with him downstairs. Excellent job to INTZ taking that, but Kamikaze able to get 2 for himself and keep his team in this match. Psycho, a pretty easy kill there onto Duds. Good game sense to check the desk, but intact in the hallway will catch Kamikaze, who is attempting to rotate to support his teammate. Psycho left in the 1 versus 2. He's gonna have to ADS to win this, and it's a big risk, but he doesn't really have a choice. Misses the initial shots and eats a lot of damage there, putting him on just about 30-40. Missing some more shots, gonna go prone. It's an unconventional way to play a shield, but he, again, does not have a choice. He cannot avoid the crossfire. Pistol out, and he will land the shots onto attack finally. But Boar is on full HP, and Psycho has less than 25, meaning he will die to a single bullet. 15 seconds left here for Psycho, and he knows his opponent is somewhere near Banana, but he retreats to the main lobby. The drone's calling this out. The drop and no headshot. Boar will get the kill, and INTZ keep themselves in this match.
An unpredictable ending that looked like we might actually see the Montaigne be able to stick it, but it's not. That's not what the doctor had in store. Doctor had an order for us.
Just to clarify my statement, because it technically was a headshot there for the Maestro, I meant the Montaigne had to headshot in that situation. There was no way he was going to get all of the HP of his 3 armor, and somehow that Maestro would miss all his shots unless it was a headshot.
So we said that Bank coming in was one of the most balanced maps over the last season, and so far there have been 2 attacking victories, and there have been, well,
2 attacking victories.
8 defending victories. So, a little bit lopsided.
Maybe it's the map.
I mean, patterns can hold here on Bank, and when you look at the operator bans, the defense are running it up, and that tends to happen when you lose a hard breacher on a map that relies so much on a hard breacher working. Now, we've seen a lot of early action from both of these teams. If you lose your Thermite or your Maverick early, it becomes very difficult for the attackers to be able to continue on with what they had planned, be able to walk away with the round victory. A lot of that does fall onto the shoulders of Ninjas in Pyjamas for banning out Hibana.
Yeah, true.
And I mean, the defense still have Maestro available. Most teams have been able to play without Mira, so not the end of the world that you don't have a Mira available. Valkyrie sees quite a bit of play in Bank. She's not going to be able to be banned, along with Maestro, along with Echo, and along with Mira. You got to leave at least 2 of those unbanned. I think a lot of that speaks to the way that these teams are playing Bank. And both teams have done a pretty good job of roaming as well. Not just keeping map control, but being able to take down the entries as well. But on top of that, I've been actually more impressed with the way the teams have made the changes throughout the course of a round. Those mid-round adaptations, as we call them, those have been far more impressive for me in regards to what we've seen, because it really speaks to the way that teams have been able to recover after they've gotten a lead-off kill. Like the Maestro of Drunks there was just tempting Psycho and welcoming a possible engagement through the window in towards Tellers and Archives. It's not going to be there.
So yeah, actually I wanted to bring this up. Psycho has decided to rotate onto Dogaby instead of playing the Montaigne. And I totally understand why we would have that rotation for Ninjas in Pyjamas. The Montaigne itself was working. The problem was the support. Over the last 2-3 rounds, the supporting player for the Montaigne was being taken down by one or another INTZ player. Whether it was Drunks or I believe it was Duds who was also getting some kills onto that support player. Whoever it was that was doing it, not having a gun behind your Montaigne makes him a glorified indestructible drone. And if there's no one to support the drone to get the kills, then what is he really doing other than establishing information? So rotating Psycho onto a gun is, I think, a sensible change here, especially considering how good Psycho's aim individually is.
Yeah. Good gunners on both sides of the equation here for both INTZ and Ninjas in Pyjamas. Drunks has really come into his own playing on that Maestro. Psycho gets caught in a crossfire and has to head for the hills as he tries to take out the shotgun-wielding Mute of Intact on server stairs, but the Dokkaebi getting lit up from inside of Archives will fall off. Meaning that Nip's going to have to go back to the drawing board here, and Pino creeping up onto the main stairs with Dokkaebi now outside. This is a waste of time, essentially, for Nip. Julio taking out Yuke, but it's a perfect trade as Yuke responds, both hitting each other at the same time. Losing your Thermite, though, to a Valkyrie. That's a very good trade for INTZ at this moment in time. So it means that your only hard breacher, quote-unquote, that will be left is Kamikaze. Pino eliminating Boar, but Pino gets down at the same time, and Psycho and Kamikaze very low, as now Wog takes quite a bit of damage from a Capkin trap. Everybody very weak on side of Nip. It's going to be a reset onto Pino as Wog through the wall takes out Duds and opens things up and gives Nip its best opportunity to put this matchup away. They've had a number of opportunities and been unable to seal the deal. Intact flirting with disaster from below, but he's going to get one, but he can't get the second dove on by Wog. Drunks will need to clutch this for his team. He sees the Ash. He takes him down, and Drunks! What a magnificent clutch with the Alda. Unable to dislodge the Maestro inside of Garage. He'll take 3 away. And Nip cannot seal the deal. And we'll go to our very final round to see the exciting conclusion to this game is.
Jeez. I mean, that was... First of all, that was a Nip round. They should have had that pretty easily. Trunks, great job there to clutch it out once more. I mean, he's really been showing up for his team here. But if we take a step back, as much as Nip should have won that round, strategically, I look at the way they were playing, and I think they shouldn't have. I mean, they were entirely too hesitant attacking the top floor and middle floor. One of the slower clears that we've seen so far today, and yes, it is Bank, so we can give them that. That's definitely a consideration. But they were just afraid, it looked like. And you were talking about at what point do you really lose the momentum. It was that round for Ninjas in Pyjamas. It was that round right there. I did not think that they were going to let that happen. I'm surprised that that it ended up getting to them in the end. And if we take an even further step back, we look at this match as a whole, we can now confidently say it's the map. I mean, clearly right now, both of these teams are struggling on attack. As you stated, I mean, we've seen 2 attack wins so far, and they were right next to each other at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half. So, and one for each team, of course. So, yeah, clearly, this is the closest we're going to be coming to a draw in the season. We have none so far for Latin America, no draws. A lot of 7-5s. So this would be the first if the trend continues. It's on Ninjas in Pyjamas to get 2 attack wins, be the ones to break free from the trend if they want to get the win.
This is one of those games where if Nip doesn't end up walking away with the full points and they just end up tying with INTZ here, this is one of those matches where, let's say something goes wrong with NIP. Let's say they're facing off and they might get relegated or they might fall like a point away from the playoffs. This is a match that they will look back on and say, we blew it.
Yeah.
They let this match slip away. And I hesitate to say it because I know that a lot of people will make it seem like we're talking down on INTZ. But this has been a combination of INTZ playing very well, but also NIP struggling to do things that they have been doing quite routinely throughout the course of the map prior to this. Keep in mind, it was a 6-1 at one point. You just need one round.
Yeah, and I will reiterate that yes, it is a big part of this is the map. But at the same time, 6-1, no excuses. No excuses. I'm sorry, you can't put it all on the map. You just need one round. And they came so close. Ninjas Pyjamas have come so close so many times to getting that one round. And this could potentially be another close attempt. Julio, early kill on Tayuk. I really like that we're seeing Julio being the one here on the Montaigne. I think he's already starting to do pretty well with that Montaigne.
The only thing that's really going to work against NIP here is that beautiful Valkyrie camera inside of the lobby, in which Drunks is going to try to capitalize as Psycho extends the lead of NIP in terms of man count. Wog will be there to take out Duds, but Drunks, the savior of INTZ, will have to work tightly with Boar on the Maestro, as it is a 4v2 in favor of NIP. We haven't had a single tie this season in NA as well.
We're going to eat a lot of damage from above, and Kamikaze will finish him off, leaving just Drunks, as you said, the hero, but he's going to miss some very crucial shots, and Psycho will lock it out. Ninjas and Pyjamas finally win the match 7-6, or 7-5, pardon me. 7-6 is not possible. Excellent job to them, but it took way too much time.
All of that effort, all of that momentum from INTZ, and they walk away empty-handed. How defeating a feeling that must be for this INTZ team is that they gave it their all. They came back, Drunks in particular, going absolutely Super Saiyan, if I can use that terminology.
Sure. I mean, he got the most frags of anyone in this entire match.
And it was all for naught. And they were clutch